Everyone plays Miyabi. You probably play Miyabi. Your moms also play Miyabi. And even your dog playing Miyabi. And we all know exactly why. Yep, that's all the reason. Do we really need a video to talk about this? So if we take a look at the Miyabi's usage rate, which is 72%, it's actually super crazy. It's probably the highest usage rate I have ever seen, and the rest of 28% probably didn't save enough pools. I'm just joking, alright? Maybe you skip her for that My Skip 6 Evelyn, which is totally understandable. And as compared to other meta unit, most of them lies at around 50%. And she also pushed down unit like Alan Zhou and Zhu Yuan expectedly because the RYU defense weakness is Ice and Ether. So why does pretty much everyone plays Miyabi? According to my scientific studies, 50% of the reason is because of the ears, and 40% is because player feels extremely motivated. And 10% is for the meta reason. Sources, my ass. Anyway, obviously she's a highly anticipated character since 2 years ago in the closed beta. So there are comments like, I've been waiting for these characters for like 2 years. And I've also seen this JP size of comments claiming that they have been waiting for Miyabi for their whole life. And I guess that's because of the time zone differences. And I've also seen people talk about how they want to save their pools for Miyabi since the launch of the game. So of course everyone will just save for her. And I think from the gameplay perspective, she pretty much got everything that a convenient characters would have, like really large AoE, because clearing up trash mob in the RYU defense is really a pain before Miyabi. You either want to set up with Nicole or you have to pull mobs into the right direction to clear all of them out, which takes a while to figure out. And for Miyabi, all you do is really just proc the Frostburn, then hold attacks, then everything would just disintegrate it. And she also got this longest iframe in the game, so you don't really feel like you are getting hit by the mobs when you are playing Miyabi. Like her 4 and 5 basic attacks are basically invincible, with parry on the 5th basic attack, and her dodge counter also lasts really long, which chain into 4 and 5th attacks, and as soon as we are holding her basic attacks, she becomes invincible. So her gameplay is bound to feel more fluid than any other unit in the game, and she doesn't have the most complicated combos like Harumasa and Grace, and you don't lose a tons of damage when you get interrupted in the middles of the combos like Soldier 11 or Ellen Zhou. So let's look into her power levels. We all know that she's probably broken, but how broken she is and why exactly? I talked about this in one of my videos. So basically the best free-to-play Miyabi team, which consists Lucy and Piper, is stronger than the best team in 1.3, which is Yanagi, Caesar, and Benice. Actually, it's Yanagi, Lighter, and Benice, but I guess it doesn't matter at this point because a lot of people skip Lighter for Miyabi. And pretty much every tier list out there pushes all the DPS down a tier and make her own tier at tier 0 in the DPS department. So seeing this actually makes me worry about the rate of power creeping, because why would I pull for a characters when I can just wait it out for the better characters in the future? And I think the only reason that the current Miyabi's power levels is justifiable is because everyone are expecting her to be broken, and I hope that she's gonna gatekeeping the power level ceiling up there for a long periods of time. And I think it is tolerable for me for a Mindscape 2 Miyabi to be as strong as the best DPS at Mindscape 0 on the next year. And I use the word tolerable, so it doesn't mean that I want that to happen, because that already happened in the Honkai Star Rail with the Acheron. She just became so underwhelming so quickly, getting power created by other DPS. And again, let's look into her stat. And there's tons of reason why Miyabi is so broken as compared to any other unit in the game. So the first thing, let's start from her base stat. Her base anomaly proficiency start at 238, which is even more than any anomaly unit equipped with the disc with anomaly proficiency main stat. So Miyabi is basically equipped with a almost fully built anomaly unit stat without any disc and W engine. You're basically cheating with game dev's permission. She is basically the golden child of Zenless Zone 0, and get this special treatment that she has her own attribute, the Frostburn, and it has the highest damage amongst all types of attributes. So after you proc the disorder on anomaly, you would get a total damage of 1450 on fire, 1700 on the lightning and ether, and basically 950 on physical and ice, and you get 2100 on Frostburn. So not only you have the double the stat of anomaly proficiency, you also has the best attribute that is trailer made for her. And it's the best attribute in game to proc the disorder, making Miyabi the most broken anomaly unit at her Mindscape 0 without signature weapon. And we are not even halfway there yet. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. I mean the anime fox girl in the room. Not you, by the way, but congrats on your neck recovery. And I'm talking about the double scaling mechanics with the critical rate. Her critical rate would also increase the anomaly builds up to 80% with 1-to-1 ratio. You are basically getting 2 stats out of 1 stat, so that she could build up the anomaly with the speed of lightning while keeping her 80% crit rate for her basic attacks to deal damage. This is absolutely insane. Well, double scaling is actually not something new. We have already saw that with Jando and Lighter, where Jando anomaly would also increase crit rate, while Lighter's impact would increase fire and ice damage. And it's totally fine because they only have 1 double scaling stat, but Miyabi has 2 double scaling stats. We already talked about the first one, the crit rate, and the second one is the general attack stat, like the attack percentage, elemental damage, and pen ratio. These stats would benefit both of her anomaly damage and her critical damage. But when it comes to other DPS unit, you could only benefit from one. It would either only benefit your anomaly damage or the critical damage, and you cannot have both of them. Even Bernice seems to be an exception, but she's not. You can only choose one way to build her. You either go full critical damage or you go full anomaly. You cannot benefit from both. But Miyabi got both of them, so that she got 2 sources of DPS, and that probably makes her the most future-proof characters in the entire Zenless Zone 0. Because any support or any content that's thrown to her in the future, she could excel with all of them, just like Xiangling in the Genshin Impacts, except that she's expected to be broken. And usually the higher your crit value is, the better it scales with those general attack stats. Oh wait, she's not broken enough yet. Let's give her a trailer-made 4 set that give her 46% critical damage and 12% crit rate on top of that, and stack that even further with her signature Vengeance, another 24% crit rate and 50% crit damage. Wow! Like bro, are we building an agent or are we building a nuclear missile to nuke everything on the way? And with that absurd amounts of crit rate and crit damage, she is both an anomaly unit and a hyper carry unit in one characters. So yeah, broken is a pretty accurate word to describe Miyabi. And last, she's incredibly easy to build. I made videos about how to build her. So basically you could slap anomaly mastery, attack percentage, or even energy regen on her. Any of these main stats would actually perform at the same power levels, if not exactly the same. And I've already shown my test result on my last video. It almost like game dev doesn't want you to mess her up when you're building Miyabi. So as long as you're slapping crit rate and her anomaly mastery, you're good to disintegrate everything on your way. And for somebody who doesn't get her signature weapon, you might have a hard time reaching that 80% crit rate, but she's already capable of wiping out everything even without reaching that 80% threshold. So you don't really have a reason to complain reaching that 80%. And if you want to play her hyper carry without her signature weapon, you could go for her attacker's crit rate upgrade W engine, which you could get it for free in the event. It's gonna scale better with the stunner. And also she's very easy to fit in pretty much any team comp with the support. Whether you're playing hyper carry or disorder, playing with stunner, playing with another anomaly unit. I even make a tier list out of it. You can pause and go over it, or you can just watch my guide. Link at the description. If anything gonna power creep Miyabi, it gonna have absurdly high base stat too, capable of dealing both anomaly damage and the critical damage. Third, even crazier double scaling mechanics. 4, really huge AoE. 5th, has to be easy to play. And 6th, extremely flexible in any team. So basically you wanna have a better version of Miyabi to replace Miyabi. And we all know who that is, her grandma. Anyway, it takes a lot to power creep her. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much why she's so broken. And see you guys.